now, we have more freedom to speak out and stand up for the values that we believe in and fight for free expression around the world. Because while we may disagree on exactly where to draw the line on specific issues, we at least can disagree. That's what free expression is. And the fact that we can even have this conversation means that we're at least debating from some common values. Back when I was in college, our country had just gone to war in Iraq. And the mood on our campus was disbelief. A lot of people felt like we were acting without hearing a lot of important perspectives. And the toll on soldiers and their families and our national psyche was severe, yet most of us felt like we were powerless to do anything about it. And I remember feeling that if more people had a voice to share their experiences, then maybe it could have gone differently. And those early years shaped my belief that giving more people a voice gives power to the powerless and pushes society to get better over time. Now, back then I was just building an early version of Facebook for my community, but I got a chance to see my values and beliefs play out at a smaller scale. And it taught me the lesson that while a lot of the world often focuses on the big events and institutions, the bigger story is that most progress in our lives actually comes from individuals having more of a voice. So since then, I've focused on building services that do two things: give people a voice and bring people together. And these two simple ideas of voice and inclusion go hand in hand. And we've seen this throughout history, even if it doesn't always seem that way today. More people being able to share their experiences and perspectives has always been necessary to build a more inclusive society. We're increasingly seeing laws and regulations around the world that undermine free expression and people's human rights. But it's even worse when countries try to impose their speech restrictions on the rest of the world. So this raises the larger question about the future of our global internet. China is building its own internet focused on very different values. And it's now exporting their vision of the internet to other countries. Now, until recently, the internet in almost every country outside of China has been defined by American platforms with strong free expression values. But there's no guarantee that these values will win out. A decade ago, almost all of the major internet platforms were American. Today, 6 of the top 10 are Chinese. And we're beginning to see this in social media too. While our services like WhatsApp are used by protesters and activists everywhere due to strong encryption and privacy protections, on TikTok, the Chinese app growing quickly around the world, mentions of these same protests are censored, even here in the US. Is that the internet that we want? So this is one of the reasons why we don't operate Facebook, Instagram, or our other services in China. I wanted our services in China because I believe in connecting the whole world, and I thought maybe we could help create a more open society. But we could never come to agreement on what it would take for us to operate there, and they never let us in. And now, we have more freedom to speak out and stand up for the values that we believe in and fight for free expression around the world. Because while we may disagree on exactly where to draw the line on specific issues, we at least can disagree. That's what free expression is. And the fact that we can even have this conversation means that we're at least debating from some common values. If another nation's platforms set the rules, our discourse can be defined by a completely different set of values. So to push back on this, as our policymakers work to define internet policy and regulation to address public safety and the important social issues, I think that we should also be proactive and write policy that helps the values of voice and expression triumph around the world. I understand that people are concerned about how much control we have over how people communicate on our services. And I understand people are concerned about bias and making sure that their ideas are treated fairly. And frankly, I don't think that we should be making so many important decisions about speech on our own either. We'd benefit from a more democratic process and clearer rules for the internet and some new institutions. So that's why we're establishing an independent oversight board for people to appeal our content decisions. The board is going to have the power to make final binding decisions about whether content stays up or comes down across our services. And I want to ensure that these values of voice and free expression are enshrined deeply into how this company is governed. We are at a moment of particular tension here and around the world, and we are seeing the impulse to restrict speech and enforce new norms on what people can and cannot say. Democracy depends on the idea that we hold each other's right to express ourselves and be heard above our desire to always get the outcomes that we want. You can't impose tolerance top-down. It has to come from people opening up, sharing experiences, and developing a shared story for our society that we all feel like we're a part of. That's how we make progress. Well, someone once told me that our founding fathers thought that free expression was like air. You don't miss it until it's gone. I'm a little more optimistic. I don't think we need to lose our freedom of expression to realize how important it is. I think that people get it and understand and appreciate the voice that they have now. And at some fundamental level, I think that most people believe in their fellow people too. But I think we're going to make progress. It's going to take time, but I think that we're going to work through this moment. We overcame deep polarization after World War I and intense political violence in the 1960s. Progress isn't linear. Sometimes we have to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But if we can't agree to let each other talk about the issues, then we can't even take the first step. So even when it's hard, this is how we build a shared understanding. The future depends on all of us. And whether you like Facebook or not, I think we need to recognize what is at stake and come together to stand for voice and free expression at this critical moment. I believe in giving people a voice because at the end of the day, I believe in people. And as long as enough of us keep fighting for this, I believe that more people's voices will eventually help us work through these issues together and write a new chapter in our history where from all of our individual voices and perspectives, we can bring the world closer together. Thank you.